Report reveals students experiencing poverty are more likely to be affected by the teacher shortage in Michigan. After 2 years of data collection and interviews, Education Trust Midwest says the report is troubling in the sense it's happening in many schools across the states. 30 educators were involved in the focus groups. The authors of this report collected data from the state as well and compiled it over the course of 2 years. The findings reveal how the shortage of teachers are impacting lower income communities compared to schools that fall in the state's wealthiest districts.
These students often face the highest rates of inexperienced teachers, teachers who have emergency or temporary credentials, and teachers who are teaching classes in what's called out of field. And these are classes that are outside their licensure area.
In 2022 to 2023, Education Trust Midwest found more than 16.5% of teachers in high poverty school districts were teaching subjects they weren't qualified for. That's higher than the state's average.
This is deeply problematic.
Jen Neal is the Director of Policy and Research for Education Trust Midwest. She is one of the authors of this report.
Shortages of teachers are big contributors to what we would call opportunity gaps, right? And these opportunity gaps in turn become achievement gaps. And we see these achievement gaps reflected on our state and national assessments every time we look at them.
We've known from other studies the teacher shortage in Michigan has troubled schools, leaving classrooms empty and districts struggling to fill positions. As Danielle explains, this issue isn't going to be solved in a few days, weeks, or months.
The teacher shortage problem is complex.
A complex issue that boils down to the impact it's having on children and their success. Through the research, Education Trust Midwest found inequities in classrooms.
We see disparities in reading scores and math scores based on race and socioeconomic status. It's really important that kids who are learning in districts with high concentrations of poverty have access to experienced and effective high-quality educators in order to help close those gaps and make up the differences that existed before the pandemic.
Data also shows teacher turnover is high in low-income districts. Michigan schools fall below the national average when it comes to teachers leaving. The state's teachers union, the Michigan Education Association, says this report supports what they've suspected for a while now.
It has been a concern because we do know that students in poverty, often that don't have the most experienced adults in the classroom, are suffering.
Chandra Matafari is the president of the MEA and says more can be done to make sure this shortage issue is being addressed.
We need to make it a better and more attractive profession, and that does mean compensation as part of it.
How does the state address this crisis in the classroom? Education Trust Midwest says there are things that can be done. There's a need for fair funding. Also, the state should look into making teaching more attractive and competitive. They also recommend offering relevant professional development to advance and grow a teacher's skill sets. Education Trust Midwest says that they have a goal to make Michigan a top 10 state for education.